Your garden is a battlefield. Right now, beneath the soil, in the spaces between leaves, through invisible chemical signals drifting on the breeze, your plants are engaged in warfare and alliance. Some are protecting their neighbors, sharing nutrients, calling in beneficial insects like tiny cavalry units. Others are slowly poisoning everything around them, claiming territory with the ruthlessness of any conquering army. And most gardeners have no idea this is happening. For thousands of years, farmers understood these relationships. They planted the three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, together because they watched what happened when they did. They noticed that certain herbs kept pests away from vegetables. They observed that some trees killed the grass beneath them, while others seemed to nurture everything in their shade. This wasn't superstition. This was careful observation passed down through generations. Then industrial agriculture arrived. Monoculture became the standard. Plant one crop, spray chemicals, harvest, repeat. The old knowledge faded. We forgot that plants have relationships. We forgot that a garden isn't just a collection of individuals, but a community with alliances, feuds, and complex social dynamics. Modern science is finally catching up to what traditional farmers always knew. The field is called Allelopathy, the study of how plants chemically influence their neighbors, and what researchers are discovering confirms and expands upon centuries of gardening wisdom. Some of it will surprise you. Some of it will make you immediately want to rearrange your garden beds. Let's start with the heroes. The protectors. The plants that actively benefit their neighbors. Basil and tomatoes represent one of the most documented companion planting partnerships. Ocimum basilicum releases volatile compounds that repel aphids, spider mites, and tomato hornworms. Studies from agricultural universities have measured pest reduction rates of 40 to 60% when basil grows within 2 feet of tomato plants. But it goes deeper than pest control. Some research suggests basil may actually improve tomato flavor by influencing the plant's production of aromatic compounds. Italian grandmothers who planted these together weren't just thinking about convenient harvesting for their sauce. They were practicing sophisticated agricultural science. Marigolds deserve their reputation as the guardians of the vegetable garden. Tagetes species release theophenes from their roots, compounds that are toxic to root knot nematodes. These microscopic worms devastate tomatoes, peppers, carrots, and dozens of other crops. French marigolds, Tagetes patula, are particularly effective. Research published in agricultural journals shows nematode population reductions of up to 90% in soils where marigolds grew the previous season. The effect persists. Plant marigolds this year, and your soil remains protected next year. The three sisters combination, corn, beans, and squash, represents perhaps the most elegant companion planting system ever developed. The corn provides structural support for bean vines to climb. The beans fix atmospheric nitrogen through their root nodules, fertilizing the corn and squash. The broad squash leaves shade the soil, suppressing weeds and retaining moisture. Each plant gives something the others need. Indigenous farmers in Mesoamerica developed this system over 4,000 years ago. Modern agricultural scientists have measured nitrogen fixation rates, yield increases, and water efficiency improvements that validate everything those ancient farmers understood. Carrots and onions form a defensive alliance against their respective pests. Carrot flies locate their targets by smell, homing in on the distinctive aroma of carrot foliage. Onion flies do the same with onions. When you interplant these crops, each masks the scent of the other. Studies show pest damage reductions of 50 to 70% in mixed plantings compared to monocultures. The strong aromatics confuse the navigation systems of incoming pests. Now let's talk about the villains. The toxic neighbors. The plants that wage chemical warfare on everything around them. Black walnut trees produce juglone, a compound so toxic to certain plants that the term walnut toxicity has its own extensive research literature. Juglone persists in roots, leaves, and nut hulls. It leaches into surrounding soil and remains active for months or even years after the tree is removed. Tomatoes planted within 50 feet of a black walnut will often die within weeks. Their leaves yellow, wilt, and curl. The plants simply cannot detoxify the juglone fast enough. Peppers, eggplants, potatoes, and many other nightshades share this vulnerability. Azaleas, rhododendrons, and blueberries also succumb. If you have black walnuts on your property, you must plan your garden around this reality. Fennel belongs in exile. Feniculum vulgar releases compounds through its roots that inhibit the growth of almost every common vegetable. Tomatoes, beans, peppers, carrots, and brassicas all suffer reduced germination and stunted growth when planted near fennel. Even its own family members struggle. The only plants that seem to tolerate fennel are other fennel plants. Give it its own isolated corner or grow it in containers. Your other vegetables will thank you. Brassicas and nightshades make terrible neighbors. Cabbage, broccoli, kale, and their relatives release glucosinolates as they grow and decompose. These compounds directly inhibit the growth of tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. Yield reductions of 20 to 30% have been documented in trials where these families were planted adjacent to each other. They also share some pests and diseases, compounding the problem. Keep your cole crops on one side of the garden and your tomatoes on the other. Sunflowers are surprisingly aggressive. Helianthus annus produces allelopathic compounds that inhibit seed germination in surrounding soil. This adaptation helps sunflowers compete in their native prairie ecosystems, but it makes them problematic neighbors for beans, potatoes, and many other crops. The effect intensifies when sunflower residue decomposes in the soil. Either remove sunflower plants completely after harvest, or plant them where their competitive nature won't affect your vegetables. Here is something most gardeners never consider. The timing matters as much as the spacing. Allelopathic compounds often increase as plants mature or begin to decompose. Fresh rye cover crop residue releases compounds that can inhibit small-seeded vegetable germination for 2 to 3 weeks. Wait before planting into terminated cover crops. Let the soil biology begin breaking down those residues first. Soil biology also mediates these relationships. Healthy soil with diverse microbial populations can detoxify many allelopathic compounds faster than depleted soil. This explains why companion planting often works better in established gardens with years of organic matter additions. The soil itself learns to manage plant chemistry. Consider this practical approach to companion planting. Think in terms of guilds rather than pairs. A tomato guild might include Basil for pest control, Marigolds for nematode suppression, and carrots whose deep roots break up soil compaction. Each member serves a function. Each contributes to the community resilience. The science supports what observation taught farmers for millennia. Plants are not passive. They communicate through chemical signals. They defend themselves and their neighbors. They compete ruthlessly when resources are scarce. Your garden contains all the complexity of any ecosystem. Modern research continues to reveal new relationships. Scientists recently documented how damaged tomato plants release volatile compounds that trigger defensive responses in neighboring tomatoes. The attacked plant essentially warns its neighbors to prepare for assault. Your garden is talking. You just cannot hear it. The conventional approach to gardening treats plants as isolated production units. Add fertilizer, spray for pests, harvest product. But gardens are communities. The relationships between plants matter as much as the individual care you provide. Start small. Choose 3 or 4 well-documented companion combinations and observe the results. Keep notes on what works in your specific conditions. Your soil, your climate, and your pest populations create unique circumstances that no general guide can perfectly address. The knowledge that industrial agriculture dismissed as folk wisdom turns out to be remarkably sophisticated ecological understanding. Traditional farmers lacked laboratory equipment, but they had generations of careful observation. They noticed which plants thrived together and which ones struggled. They passed this wisdom forward. Now you carry that knowledge too. Use it. Your garden is waiting to show you what happens when plants become allies instead of strangers.